Geography of Indonesia and list of islands of Indonesia. Mount Semeru and Mount Bromo in East Java. Indonesia's seismic and volcanic activity is among the world's highest. Indonesia lies between latitudes 11S and 6N and longitudes 95E and 141E. It is the world's largest archipelagic country, extending 5,120 kilometers, 3,181 miles, from east to west and 1,760 kilometers, 1,094 miles, from north to south. The country's Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investments Affairs says Indonesia has 17,504 islands, with 16,056 registered at the UN, scattered over both sides of the equator, around 6,000 of which are inhabited. The largest are Sumatra, Java, Borneo, shared with Brunei and Malaysia, Sulawesi, and New Guinea, shared with Papua New Guinea. Indonesia shares land borders with Malaysia on Borneo and Sebatik, Papua New Guinea on the island of New Guinea, and East Timor on the island of Timor, and maritime borders with Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Palau, and Australia. At 4,884 meters, 16,024 feet. Puncak Jaya is Indonesia's highest peak, and Lake Toba in Sumatra is the largest lake, with an area of 1,145 kilometers to 442 square miles. Indonesia's largest rivers are in Kalimantan and New Guinea and include Kapuas, Barito, Mamberamo, Sepik and Mahakam. They serve as communication and transport links between the island's river settlements. Climate of Indonesia and climate change. In Indonesia rainforest, in Mount Palung National Park, West Kalimantan, Indonesia, lies along the equator, and its climate tends to be relatively even year-round. Indonesia has two seasons, a wet season and a dry season, with no extremes of summer or winter. For most of Indonesia, the dry season falls between May and October, with a wet season between November and April. Indonesia's climate is almost entirely tropical, dominated by the tropical rainforest climate found in every large island of Indonesia. More cooling climate types do exist in mountainous regions that are 1,300 to 1,500 meters, 4,300 to 4,900 feet above sea level. The oceanic climate, KNCFV, prevails in island areas adjacent to rainforest climates, with reasonably uniform precipitation year-round. In island areas near the tropical monsoon and tropical savanna climates, the subtropical island climate, KNCWV, is prevalent with a more pronounced dry season. KN Geiger Climate Classification Map. For Indonesia, some regions, such as Kalimantan and Sumatra, experience only slight differences in rainfall and temperature between the seasons, whereas others, such as Nusa Tenggara, experience far more pronounced differences, with droughts in the dry season and floods in the wet. Rainfall varies across regions, with more in western Sumatra, Java, and the interiors of Kalimantan and Papua, and less in areas closer to Australia, such as Nusa Tenggara, which tend to be dry. The almost uniformly warm waters that constitute 81% of Indonesia's area ensure that land temperatures remain relatively constant. Humidity is quite high, at between 70 and 90%. Winds are moderate and generally predictable, with monsoons usually blowing in from the south and east in June through October and from the northwest in November through March. Typhoons and large-scale storms pose little hazard to mariners. Significant dangers come from swift currents in channels, such as the Lombok and Sape Straits. Several studies consider Indonesia to be at severe risk from the projected effects of climate change. These include unreduced emissions resulting in an average temperature rise of around 1 C, 2 F, by mid-century, raising the frequency of drought and food shortages, with an impact on precipitation and the patterns of wet and dry seasons, and thus Indonesia's agriculture system as well as numerous diseases and wildfires. Rising sea levels would also threaten the majority of Indonesia's population who lives in low-lying coastal areas. Impoverished communities would likely be affected the most by climate change. Geology of Indonesia. Volcanoes of Indonesia. Tectonically, most of Indonesia's area is highly unstable, making it a site of numerous volcanoes and frequent earthquakes. It lies on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where the Indo-Australian Plate and the Pacific Plate are pushed under the Eurasian Plate, where they melt at about 100 kilometers, 62 miles, deep. A string of volcanoes runs through Sumatra, Java, Bali and Nusa Tenggara, and then to the Banda Islands of Maluku to northeastern Sulawesi. Of the 400 volcanoes, around 130 are active. Between 1972 and 1991, there were 29 volcanic eruptions, mostly on Java. Volcanic ash has made agricultural conditions unpredictable in some areas. However, it has also resulted in fertile soils, a factor in historically sustaining high population densities of Java and Bali. A massive supervolcano erupted at present-day Lake Toba around 70,000 BCE. It is believed to have caused a global volcanic winter and cooling of the climate and subsequently led to a genetic bottleneck in human evolution, though this is still in debate. The 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora and the 1883 eruption of Krakatoa were among the largest in recorded history. The former caused 92,000 deaths and created an umbrella of volcanic ash that spread and blanketed parts of the archipelago and made much of the northern hemisphere without summer. In 1816 the latter produced the loudest sound in recorded history and caused 36,000 deaths due to the eruption itself and the resulting tsunamis, with significant additional effects around the world years after the event. Recent catastrophic disasters due to seismic activity include the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and the 2006 Yogyakarta earthquake. Biodiversity and conservation. Fauna of Indonesia, flora of Indonesia, and protected areas of Indonesia. Indonesia's size, tropical climate, and archipelagic geography support one of the world's highest levels of biodiversity and is among the 17 megadiverse countries identified by Conservation International. Its flora and fauna is a mixture of Asian and Australasian species. The Sunda Shelf Islands, Sumatra, Java, Borneo, and Bali were once linked to mainland Asia and have a wealth of Asian fauna. Large species such as the Sumatran tiger, rhinoceros, orangutan, Asian elephant, and leopard were once abundant as far east as Bali, but numbers and distribution have dwindled drastically. Having been long separated from the continental landmasses, Sulawesi, Nusa Tenggara, and Maluku have developed their unique flora and fauna. Papua was part of the Australian landmass and is home to a unique fauna and flora closely related to that of Australia, including over 600 bird species. Indonesia is second only to Australia in terms of total endemic species, with 36% of its 1,531 species of bird and 39% of its 515 species of mammal being endemic. Tropical seas surround Indonesia's 80,000 kilometers, 50,000 miles of coastline. The country has a range of sea and coastal ecosystems, including beaches, dunes, estuaries, mangroves, coral reefs, seagrass beds, coastal mudflats, tidal flats, algal beds, and small island ecosystems. Indonesia is one of Coral Triangle countries, with the world's most enormous diversity of coral reef fish, with more than 1,650 species in eastern Indonesia only. British naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace described the dividing line, Wallace Line, between the distribution of Indonesia's Asian and Australasian species. It runs roughly north-south along the edge of the Sunda Shelf, between Kalimantan and Sulawesi, and along the deep Lombok Strait, between Lombok and Bali. Flora and fauna on the west of the line are generally Asian, while east from Lombok, they are increasingly Australian until the tipping point at the Weaver Line. In his 1869 book, The Malay Archipelago, Wallace described numerous species unique to the area. The region of islands between his line and New Guinea is now termed Wallacea. Indonesia's large and growing population and rapid industrialization present serious environmental issues. They are often given a lower priority due to high poverty levels and weak under-resourced governance. Problems include the destruction of peatlands, large-scale illegal deforestation, causing extensive haze across parts of Southeast Asia, overexploitation of marine resources, air pollution, garbage management, unreliable water and wastewater services. These issues contribute to Indonesia's low ranking, number 116 out of 180 countries in the 2020 Environmental Performance Index. The report also indicates that Indonesia's performance is generally below average in both regional and global context. Indonesia reportedly has one of the fastest deforestation rates in the world. In 2018, forests cover approximately 49.7% of the country's land area, down from 87% in 1950. Starting in 1970s and continuing up to the present day, log production, various plantations and agriculture have been responsible for much of the deforestation in Indonesia. Most recently, it has been driven by the palm oil industry. Such industries have been criticized for their environmental impact and displacement of local communities. The situation has made Indonesia the world's largest forest-based emitter of greenhouse gases. It also threatens the survival of indigenous and endemic species. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, identified 140 species of mammals as threatened and 15 as critically endangered, including the Bali minnow, Sumatran orangutan, and Javan rhinoceros. 56.